another exciting episode of Let's Talk Comics. I am your host, Jim Viscardi, and this is the official Image Comics podcast where we go one-on-one with your favorite creators in the business to find out how they got in, why they got in, what they're still doing in comics, and what they've got coming up. And today's guest is no different. You may know him from the pages of Head Lopper. My guest today is Andrew MacLean. Andrew MacLean's got a new book coming out called Death Fight Forever, and news of more Head Lopper coming up. And man, I had so much fun with this episode, and just talking to Andrew, because Andrew is a creator that his work, it feels honest, I guess, right? Like I've been a long time fan of Andrew's, and this was actually the first time that we've ever had a conversation, but I felt so comfortable talking to him because I feel like the stuff that he does, whether he's writing or drawing, is so him, if that makes any sense whatsoever. And the more I got to talk to him, the more it really, the more all of my assumptions were right, I guess. But he is another example of, he wanted to get into comics. He started making comics and made it into comics. And I know that is something that is a easier said than done kind of thing. But I think why I used the word honest for Andrew's work is he believes that if he's making the stuff that he wants to make, and trusts that if he's having fun with it, the reader will too. And that has led him to be able to do the work that he's done. So today we talk about how he was able to, he went to school for music and became a comics artist and writer, creator, a full-on creator. We talk about the early days of Head Lopper. We get into what Death Fight Forever is. Look, if you love those 90s beat 'em up side scrollers, your Double Dragons, your Streets of Rage, those type of games, you're going to like Death Fight Forever. This is that kind of energy put onto a printed page. It's loud, it's violent, it's funny. It is pure energy. And I'm a 90s kid. I love that stuff. This speaks so much to me. You don't have to be a 90s kid to enjoy this. Sometimes I think, folks should just get a comic to just have fun. And you're right. And just experience kind of big fun action. And that's what this book is. And so we get into all of that. We get into some advice talk at the very end. And then that's it. So before we get into this, I just want to go through over some of the business. Again, if you have found this show for the first time, I hope you hit that subscribe button. I hope you enjoy this episode. I hope you take a look at who some of the previous guests were on Let's Talk Comics and go and listen to the back catalog. I hope you then, maybe after listening or while listening, maybe take a screenshot, share it on social media, put it on Instagram, put it on wherever, tag me, tag Image Comics, tag Andrew. We would love to share that. And then if you want to take another step further to support the show, leave a review. Head on over to Apple Podcasts, leave a review, head on over to Spotify, leave a rating, leave a comment. Love answering some of that stuff, even if it's at my expense. There are some of you out there. I get it. I see you. I hear you. It's fine. Okay, that's the business. All right, let's just get into it. If you're ready, I'm ready. Let's talk comics. Andrew, welcome.
Thanks. What a good intro. I love it. I hope I can, bring it.
Yeah, it's one of those, every time I talk to a creator before the interview and then turn it on and go into Jim podcast mode, everyone's like, whoa, wait, is this the energy we're bringing to the show today? And I'm like, hell yeah. I got my Celsius next to me. I'm ready to go. Andrew, like I said, I told you I've been a fan of your work for a while. And so to be able to get to talk to you today, I think is going to be a fun ride for us. the first question I ask everyone, just to kind of set the tone for the thing, was comics always the end game for you, or is there a alternate universe where you have a landscaping business and that's what you
There are some
wrote?
alternate universes, sure, yeah. Um, I'm sure there's a version of me in each. Yeah, so when I was really little, I always liked to draw. I think I
Right.
just saw like my dad doing some doodles and it blew my mind that a human could like draw a car,
Mhm.
period. Like, and so I always, you know, as little kids draw, I just never stopped. So I always loved that. I always loved comics. I feel like I learned to draw from like copying panels out of comics. I always loved superheroes, um, growing up anyways. And yeah, so fairly early on, I was like, I think once I realized it was a job that a person does, I wanted to do it. I wanted to do that for a number of years, and then I started playing guitar, and I started playing in metal bands, and then I was like, I just want to be in a band, and I still drew. It's just my focus had became music for a number of years, but then when I was in college, um and all of my homework was then music, I started to draw, like, really heavily again, like, almost as a break from, homework.
Right.
And all of a sudden, by the time I graduated from college, even though it was a music degree, I was, like, really excited to draw comics again. I think what happened was I moved, like, I grew up in a small town, and then in
Okay.
college, I was in a big city, so I had access to, like, a real comic shop that I could just walk to. So
Right.
I started to read a lot more comics again and just get, really excited about it again, and also just having that kinda access, realize that, like, oh, like, comics aren't, like, just superheroes, and they aren't drawn just one way. There's such a wide variety of comics out there. I got just totally re-excited about it. So then after college, yeah, I was kinda, like, 2 feet in with
What did you go to college for?
I went to college, I played guitar, and I loved writing, like, heavy metal, but my degree was in songwriting, which is
Okay.
typically the people in that degree, they're like writing pop songs or country songs or something. And then like the people who were into similar music as me, they always were like a performance degree, like, or something. Like they like
Okay.
wanted to just get like really good at their instrument. But I liked, not unlike, I don't like to just draw. It turns out I like to tell stories. So I feel like my like interest in music was similar, where I didn't just want to play guitar. I like to write songs.
Mhm.
So yeah, so after college, I was just like, yeah, I just want to do this. And it was weird to like have a degree that was like fresh, stuff fresh. And I was already like changing my mind what I was going to do. But it slowly ended up working out. I wanted, had some other jobs that were like kind of, graphic design jobs and other
Okay.
like 2D art jobs
Uh-huh.
that I kind of had as I was trying to get, into making comics.
So these are
But
like
yeah.
keep the bills paid jobs kind of
Yeah,
things.
that's kinda how I got here. I did, like, a ton of pitches with a bunch of different writers, got a bunch of rejections, but, uh, publishers started to remember my other pitches and be like, "This one sucked, maybe the next one's a little better." And
Well,
so I felt like I got
can we talk a little bit about kind of your early pitch process in a sense, right? How did you where and how did you go to even like learn what a pitch needed and
sure, yeah.
what were some of those early pitches that you were, trying to do and,
I was just I would basically do a pitch with, like, anybody who would
Mhm.
ask, or either pay like, a very small page rate to,
Uh-huh.
do a few pages for them. But I just did a ton of Googling and searching, like, at the time, I mean, it's probably somewhat similar now, but at the time, that was, like, I don't know, like, 2010 or
Okay.
something, maybe when I was really, like, pitching really heavily. Um and I don't know where I got the information, but I just compiled enough information probably from multiple different publishers' websites that there
Mhm.
seemed to be a pretty consensus of like, I don't know, 8, 10, 12 pages of like sequential art, preferably
Yeah.
something that shows like a little bit of action, a little bit of quiet, like just like showed like a breadth of the fact that you can tell a story through different like moments and draw different like environments and different types of people. And then I would usually try to make a 1-2 page like document that was like real basic, like a real elevator pitch, 1 or 2 sentences, then maybe a couple characters, and then like a brief like summary or whatever. So that was kind of like the package that I was sending around.
Mm.
But I was working with almost all, I didn't consider myself a writer, didn't really see that in my future. So they're always um, with other writers. And sometimes they were just someone who was like, I like your art. And I was like, I like your books, and we would make something together. Other times someone would hire me. But yeah, there was a good chunk of them
Mm.
that went out that just never landed.
So you came out of school then, but with a songwriting degree. So presumably, the idea of storytelling and stuff like that through words, but inevitably you felt that your artwork was stronger than your written ability for a bit, or like where maybe did you find confidence in
Yeah,
one over the other?
Yeah, like, I think that, like, there's certain things that I think, you grow up and they're just, like, in your head and you just, like, almost don't question them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
me, like, artist and writer were 2 different jobs, and, even though I'd become a Mignola fan by then. But, and I just, like, sometimes putting a label on yourself as a creative person is, like,
Sure.
it can be a challenge. You're just, like, going from, like, I like to draw to be like, I am an artist. You're like, what does that mean, And so, like, there's a little bit of a hurdle, I think, for a lot of creators to just be comfortable saying, I'm a writer, or I can do this thing, I have this ability or something. And I really only found writing as a means largely to draw the things that I wanted to draw. I've always had, like, ideas, I just didn't consider myself any kind of wordsmith or whatever. So yeah, at one point I was working with a handful of writers simultaneously, and they were basically just paying me to work on their books as they had the money, and they were just going to self-publish, or Kickstarter was,
Sure.
coming around and becoming pretty normal by then. So yeah, there was two writers I was working with, and they both didn't have scripts or like financial ability to move the project forward. They weren't ready when they said they would be, and they were both like, "Oh, October, I'll have a script," and this other guy's like, "I'll have a script," and this is like how is just scraping together enough money to like pay the bills. Like, I'm really not pulling it off. And so all of a sudden they're both late and I don't have a job for that month because, long story short, at some point I moved to New York City and just couldn't find a new job when I got there. So I was like applying for jobs while trying to take on graphic design jobs and illustration jobs. And anyway, so I had this chunk of time where all of a sudden I had no work to do at all. And I was like, well, if I've got a month to like create my own project, what do I want to draw? And I was like, oh, I had this sword and sorcery character that I had created, the kind of on a whim, that was just so fun to draw. And the monsters I had drawn him like slaying were so fun, including this like witch head. And I was just literally like, what's the story that gets me to draw this more? Like, this is just really fun. And that included the severed witch head on that original drawing. And I was like, how do I get to draw like this witch head is really fun. Like, what story allows me to draw this witch head again? And I was like, well, it talks like that, like it's alive. Like, and I was just like, well, that's kind of funny. This guy, like, he kills a lot of stuff. And then it just went from there. I was like, oh, so he must have cut her head off. And like, and so all of a sudden I was like, oh, I'll just do this 22-page, barbarian story. And if and I'll call it, can't be Decapitator. That's the first thing you think of. So Head Lopper is like the next logical thing. And I was like, all right, so if I only ever do 20 pages of this thing, at least there's that one time I made exactly what I wanted. And that was so fun. And it turned out to be really fun. And people liked it. And I still probably made, another 65 pages of Head Lopper before I was comfortable referring to myself as like the writer of it. But yeah, that's kind of how I started Not that I hadn't written like short comics for myself, but that's really how I started to be like, all right, maybe I can, maybe I can write the comics that I draw too.
Mm-hmm. You've said before, and it feels like a perfect example of it, that you make things because you want to make them, not necessarily because you're chasing an audience. Is that still true for you now, or has that perspective changed a little bit now that you've gotten more reps?
I think it's harder. Like once someone reads your stuff, it's hard to be in that. It's hard to not be like self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's to make from that place to create. I think that to create from that place that's like stress-free, that is from a place of the joy of creation, from the place of a joy of like your genre or your characters, whatever. To create from that place that is to create for you, I think is a great place to create from. Like you're creating without stress. You're not second guessing yourself as much. You're just like, and I think you can create good, like you can create good stuff from that place. From that mindset, because I do think that if you're enjoying the creation process, the reader will probably also enjoy, or is more likely to enjoy the reading, because I don't know, I think it translates. I think you can feel that. So I try to put myself in that headspace of no one's going to read this. I'm just enjoying this, but it's harder when you know that at some point you are going to try to sell it to try
Right.
to pay your bills. Like, and that's like the idea of like the pressure. There's some pressure with being like, I'm going to try to make ends meet with like my talent,
Mm-hmm.
or like a frivolous thing that people don't need to buy. This strictly entertainment. I'm not selling gas. I'm not selling milk, like you don't
Right.
need a comic book. So you know, that voice makes it hard to create from a kind of like empty space that feels like
Mm-hmm.
safe, but I try to create that, and like more and more so, like new Head Lopper starts in April, and I
Mm-hmm.
started actually like writing and drawing it like earlier than I normally would, to try to create that headspace of like no pressure. Like I didn't have a deadline yet. That was kind of the goal. In the last couple of years, I self-published a few comics. I did this kaiju comic called Snarlagon, and then a Headlopper spinoff of Agatha before she's beheaded. And like the reason I self-published those was I could create them in this place where it's not a product. I'm just creating a story. I'm creating art, and then it can become a product once I'm done. So like
Sure.
I try to create from that space still. It's just harder.
Mhm.
When you
Do
know that you're
you
gonna sell it later.
it's interesting because mentioning that starting the next thing, next chapter of Headlopper in a space where you could kind of go a little bit at your own leisure, but in like you're letting yourself kind of think a bit about how you want the story to kind of like grow and breathe. Does the minute you put deadlines on yourself, do you ever worry that potentially like overthinking about the story then kills kind of your creative momentum in a sense, or is it just more motivation?
I think it could. The bigger challenge that I find once that like deadline clock starts is that, especially where the page counts on like the Headlopper comics aren't
Right.
static. They're basically like quarterly comics that come out every 3 months. And I generally in the past have made them as long I as
Mm.
I can for that time frame, basically. So it's like, when I sign off on an issue getting turned in, like it's finalized or whatever. My wife is really great at this. She's good at scheduling and like very like numbers, and like she's a whiz with this stuff. So she's really good at being like upfront, be like, all right, this is the pace that you're currently drawing at, basically. And so she's like, if you work X number of days per week at the pace that you draw to make your deadline in 3 months, you can't write a script that's longer than these
Mm.
many pages that you can draw. So like I'll have to, once I'm in the deadlines, like I have to write the the scripts, the page counts, so that they don't exceed the amount of time I actually have to draw the thing before the book comes out. So like more often than not, that means cutting stuff. So for me, I find that schedule, yes, there's the pressure of like, wanting to please a readership or whatever. But the deadlines are actually the bigger challenge in that regard. And it affects the content because I have to make cuts and I have to speed things up. And the first things to go are the things that don't necessarily like move the plot. So the first things to go are an extra page of fights, things that are just atmosphere, like a cool panel or a cool page of just Norgal and Agatha or the team or whoever, or we're talking Death Fight Forever, like traveling. Like if there's just a page of like take a breath before a big fight or something, like I gotta cut that. If it doesn't move the plot directly, it gets cut. So the books end up swelling to meet the time I have, really.
How so then I get like, so in doing that, right, like how much of that is for you, do you feel is instinct maybe versus making sure you can keep to a structure, right? Like you said, like, oh, okay, in storytelling, the book needs to keep moving. For you, where do you feel that, like, okay, this is the spot to cut. This is the spot to cut versus, well, I need blah, 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 blah.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
There is like more often than not anything that like I feel anything that goes in the book, unless I have time to expand, anything that goes in the book, you should kind of learn something. Like someone like even if it's as simple as a dynamic between two characters. Like so even if two characters are talking about something that doesn't matter. It's a ramble, it's a rant, it's like a total tangent from the plot from the story. Um if it's in there, you should probably at least be learning the dynamic between those characters because it'll matter for how they interact going forward. Um, because I love reference I always use is I love like the Lone Wolf and Cub, manga. There'll be like pages of just like grass in the wind. You know what I mean? Like before the characters just walk through a field, or they'll spend 2 pages on walking down a trail. Like I love stuff like that. Like it's a moment of atmosphere. It's a moment of like just like beauty for your eyes to absorb some art, and but they're fluff, like no one's talking. You're not really learning anything other than this is what the environment looks like. So, as much as I love those moments or even like a few extra pages of just fighting, because it's cool art, it's like basically cool art gets sacrificed first. Or it's like, say, a moment in the story that I would want to dedicate a full page to or a double page spread. Like this moment is like important to the story. It's freaking cool. Um, well, it takes up 2 pages if I do that, and if I don't have a ton of time, well, maybe it's gonna be 1 page, or maybe it's just a panel, so things end up getting just, like, compressed, uh, to make those things work.
When you're sitting down to write, though, given that you have, that you can do both if you wanted to, right, and draw, are you seeing the pages in your head as you're sitting down to write them, or are there times where you've got an idea of plot and you're sitting down to write it, but you don't really work it out until you actually start putting pencil to paper?
Yeah, that's a cool question, I like that. I do see I write myself because I started, like, not as a writer, but with working
Right.
with other writers, my process became, I just minimized your window, there you are. My process became writing a full script, like, so I write each panel, I write the dialogue, I write even, like, descriptions and stuff. Because yes, while I'm writing it, I am picturing an actual panel, um and I'm hoping to when I sit down to then do the layout and do the drawing, I am hoping to like recall that initial image. So I do put a lot of description in there. However, so often I still get to the page and either for a time crunch or whatever, I might like combine 2 panels or I realize like the speech bubble is so damn big. Like,
Mm.
this person is saying so much. There's no way I can draw all this stuff in the background. So, like, I'll end up, like, breaking panels. So there is a lot of, like, shifting that goes on, like, once I sit down to draw, just because sometimes once you actually see it on paper, you just realize your idea just didn't work the way you thought it would. Um, then dialogue from page 3 is on page 4, and there's always, which is one of the nice things about, like, lettering in house too, is that, like, I can continue to make those changes and edits through the whole, like, process.
How early did you realize how small word balloons actually are?
They're pretty small. And the thing is, I love to draw big. Like, I would draw, like, double size if I could, but it just takes double long. So I still draw on, like, 11 by 17s, which is very, very standard, of course. But I also draw on them my word balloons.
Okay.
And then, so the balloons are on all the pages, letters here and there, but most of the letters are digital. But yeah, the rule that because, how small they actually are. So I try not to write too many panels per page, obviously, but the
Sure.
other thing I do is when I draw a circle in, obviously I'm kind of guessing. I'm like, all right, I think the dialogue is this big, and whatever I think it is, I'm like, you got to increase it by a good 25 to 50%. Like, whatever I think, it's bigger. Um, and then sometimes I'm just like, all right, well, I just have too many words. I just
Mhm.
have too many words in this balloon. And so, like, again, I get to the lettering stage, and there's a lot of rewriting in it just to get it to fit on top of the art.
Yeah. I've heard some artists say that some writer artists say that if in an effort to not necessarily have to edit for brevity dialogue, they will use captions and caption boxes
Okay.
as an alternative. Do you find that, like, similar thing? Because, like I said, I think, like, once you realize how small word balloons actually are, right? I think it forces you to edit in a way that, for someone new, maybe you're not even, you don't realize,
Oh, sure.
but then it lets you explore other parts of the medium, like, oh, well, there are caption boxes, and does
Yeah,
this
yeah,
thing said
absolutely.
out loud become something said in his head, and does that give me more room? Is that
Sure.
is that something you
A little
feel
bit,
when?
yeah.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things I'll do. One thing is that words, they do in paragraphs, I should say, fit better in a square than they do a circle. So
Sure.
one of the things that I'll do is I will put my word balloons up against the top gutter. I'll try to put as many
Mhm.
balloons right up against the roof, like, because then the top of the panel will create a square, and sometimes I even make the whole damn, like, word balloon, like a square, because it just fits text, it comes out in a block, like, it just
Right.
fits there, so you can fit more in a square. And the other thing I do, is, like, I don't do a lot of captions,
Right.
because with some exception, there isn't a lot of, like, say, narration in, like Head Lopper. New Head Lopper, because it's kind of like we're starting with a new number one. It has some narration, like I'm introducing some new
Mhm.
elements to it. Um, so in that scenario, like, if a narrator is droning on about something, and then it's like I never wanna really give someone, like, 4 or 5 speech bubbles or something. Yeah, so like, I'll have them, like, start in a speech bubble, but if they're still talking, I can grab, like, a caption box and put it lower in
Mhm.
the panel or something, so it's just like, you don't have all these strings, like, looping back to the character, like, that's just messy art. So, yeah, there are some tricks you can do to, like, give your character enough space to, like, talk and not
Mhm.
have to put everything in a balloon.
Right. Uh, let's talk a little bit more about Head Lopper. You said that is a book that you needed to make, for you. Um, w- what did finishing that book prove to you? Knowing that was kind of what your impetus was for starting it, and actually making it through that journey.
That, like, the first one?
Yeah, the
Like,
first
the
one.
first issue?
Yeah.
It was, It was really nice. I think all the other books that I'd worked on with other writers in those pitches and stuff, as much as I enjoyed having something to work on, I wasn't really creatively satisfied.
Mm.
I wasn't quite drawing the stuff that I wanted to draw, and I was like, that's fine. That's just a job. I'm grateful to have a job where I get to draw. But yeah, when I did that very first 20-page self-published Head Lopper, like it was like creatively satisfying. Like it's really easy as a creator to look back at your old work and just like cringe at it and like be like,
Well, there are some creators that refuse to look back at
yeah, like it's just hard to look at. Like so many like artists, when they get to the end of the book, they want to go back to the page 1, 2, and 3 and start redrawing. I'm always like, move forward, move on to the next. Yeah, you draw it better by you get to the end. You've had a lot of time with these characters, like that's inevitable. But just move on to the next. But that said, I definitely feel that way. Like in the very first volume of Head Lopper, the first 20 pages are pages I drew like 15 plus years ago. Like there's so much of my style that I had worked out before I even got to the next, 40-page chunk. Like if you look at the original issue 1 of Head Lopper, like the art, like from the time I started even issue 1, like I had drawn a whole nother graphic novel. So like there's like 100 pages in issue 1. Like page 1 to the last page is like spread out over like 5 years and like just a shit ton of practice. Like so like I get noticeably better within issue 1. Um And so as much as like those first 20 pages really make me cringe, like the fact that it all came from doing exactly what I want, and like no compromise, like it's just like, all right, I want a talking severed head, I want to kill some sea monsters, all this stuff. Like I still look back at those initial pages and I feel very satisfied with them. I don't look at them and be like, these are great, I killed it. But I look at them and be like, I did exactly what I wanted. And to me, that still feels really, really good. Like, I feel like I give myself a little bit of slack on poor drawings because I enjoyed the process so much.
Sure. What was it like for you when the book started to find an audience? Because like here's a book that you made truly for yourself. You're sharing it out there, and then a lot of people really start to like it.
Yeah, it was
What was
weird
that?
actually, and heartwarming in a way. Like,
Sure.
so like I thought I had like this like really weird, like dark sense of humor that like no one else would think is funny. I didn't think, and I didn't even plan to make anything funny about Head Lopper. I thought the idea of it in general, like one of the ideas was like, imagine there was a book that lasted 20 years and all the guy did for 20 years is cut the heads off of things. And I just thought that was really funny. And I'm like, why would anyone else think that's funny? And even just so much of it I thought was just for me. And I was just like, fuck it. And when people started to like it and respond to it, I like was stunned. It was very strange in that regard, but also was heartwarming in that like I felt kind of like less alone. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the fact that I thought that I was gonna make a thing that only I would like, that I was just scratching an itch, that was just like, here's this dumb thing I want to do, and when people were attracted to it and coming, to talk to me about it and everything, I was just like, really, like. Or they'd be like, I laughed so hard at this point. I was like, that wasn't even in the script. Like this still happens. Like I'll like be like drawing it and I'd be like getting to a page, laying it out. And I'm like, wouldn't it be funny if this person just did this instead? And I'm like, screw it. Like, let's just put it in there. We'll see where it goes down the line. So yeah, when people responded positively to that, it was like, it was really nice. It was really nice to just like have people be like, "Oh, like all these people are kind of like me. If they like this weirdness, then I guess they're kind of like me too."
Does that kind of success What does it do more? Does it raise the stakes more for you, or does it raise pressure more for you?
I mean, I guess it's the same thing. As the stakes rise, the pressure rise. I think the thing that like kind of scares me is that then and I wish I could get this out of my head, honestly. We talked about trying to create from a lower pressure place. Um yeah, it makes me have something to lose, basically. Like it was easier to make something when you weren't risking anything.
Mhm.
Like when I was just desperately trying to turn a hobby into a job, it was all up from there, right? Like
Right.
there was no like I could only gain, and so I wasn't risking much by making a book I thought no one would like. Do you know what I mean? Now when I make a book, I need people to like it because
Right.
now I have a mortgage, so like, so there is some pressure there, and I wish I could get it out of my head, but that's life, I guess. It just exists.
Mhm.
So I do try to just remember, what it's like to just be like, just try to pretend I'm the audience, like try to make a
Mhm.
book that I think I would like, and if I succeed, well, other people will like it too.
Right. Well, so I think a good seg into Death Fight Forever, because what I'd love to ask first. Well, let's get the quick pitch. So what is Death Fight Forever, and then I'll start throwing questions at you.
Yeah, in a nutshell, Death Fight Forever is this book that I made that's just like I love genre, and like I feel like everything I make is kind of a love letter to just something I love, And so Death Fight Forever is my love letter to like 90s side scroller beat 'em up video games. Played a bunch of Double Dragon when I was a kid. We played like the NES, like RoboCop as a kid, like these just, Golden Axe, like just fun side scroller beat 'em ups. And so I wanted to just make just a high energy action comedy. The story is like super simple. It's just two characters. So there's Bash Biggle, and he's kind of like he's inspired by like Double Dragons, where
Mhm.
Double Dragons was two brothers, like I don't know, saving their like kidnapped girlfriend or something. I don't remember the story, but they're just like street brawlers, right? And so Crash and Bash are these street brawlers. They're like kind of like negative twins. One's like black hair, one's blonde hair, like all that silly video game stuff. And they're also like super thieves. They're a duo of like they pick like high end like technological locks.
Mhm.
Like so like Bash is the fingers and Crash is the ears. Like Crash puts his ear, he like listens to the say, and he's like one tick to the left, one tick to the right, or whatever. And so like that's there between they're super thieves, street brawlers. And then the other main character is Marla Mendoza. And Marla Mendoza, she's the like leader of this like cops gang. And you can think of this
Mhm.
world as like almost like Mad Max, but there's still like it's not the desert, it's like buildings and stuff. And like so it's gangs and all this stuff. So Marla is the leader of this cops gang, and they've been hired by this like interdimensional like demon, like Lord Slither. He's this like cobra headed like demon from I think they called it like the Phantom Realm or whatever, another dimension. And so she's like fiercely loyal to him. But when Crash and Bash come to try to break into this like temple that Lord Slither has occupied in the Yucatan jungle, Slither sends um Marla and her team after to go stop Crash and Bash. And so without spoiling anything, what we end up having in this book is like, how do I not spoil? Like Bash and Marla, not unlike, Norgal and Agatha, two like would-be enemies. Basically they end up teaming up to hunt down, you know, um, Lord Slither to take back the things that he he takes from
Sure.
them. And so, yeah, so the whole comic is these two, would-be enemies hunting down this ever elusive, like interdimensional demon.
Mhm.
And like video games, like each issue is basically a level. The first issue is really set up like the plot and the story.
Mhm.
We move forward. Like each one is like a level. It's just like each time they think they're gonna catch Slither, but they fall into some kind of trap. So it's like that is like really from like Mario 1, like you fight like Bowser, and you're like, sorry, princess is in another castle.
This is
So
another
like,
castle.
so this series is constantly,
Yeah.
the stakes get higher and higher, and so like in each like issue, as the stakes grow, you realize that like Slither has more power than you even like realize. It gets worse and worse, and like you keep meeting more and more of his henchmen, and they're bigger and stronger each time, and it's just like the odds of success, diminish greatly. But so it's really a very violent, very funny, kind of crazy book. Bright colors. Like I originally wanted to get Alexis Ziritt to draw the whole thing because his art style is just so like bright and energy and like it's like perfect for this style. When you didn't have the time to do the whole book, I pulled in a different artist for each chapter. Basically, like Alexis does the first two issues, which really set up the story, like the real like bread and butter of like the story. And then I have different artists, on each issue after that. But I really think we did a good job getting artists that like had that same energy as Alexis. The colors are so bright. The art styles are like the coolest in the game. And the creatures and the monsters and the bad guys just get crazier and crazier until it all just like explodes at the end.
Mhm. I love that. So I guess talk to me a little bit about the process of finding those other, collaborators. How did Alexis come in, and how did some of the other artists that you've, inevitably had to go find come into the picture? And, and I guess with each of them, did you do anything specific to try and suit some of their strengths that maybe
A
someone else
little
didn't?
bit, yeah. When I collaborate with people, I really don't like. I'm trying to choose people that I'm a really big fan of already, so I'm hoping to get out of them the things that I like. So, it's a balance. Like I don't want to give them too much guidance or too many like notes or edits or something because I want them to like and also feel ownership in it.
Mhm.
So I try to give them as much room as they can. And this was a good one for that because there's so many henchmen and so many things to design. I feel like each artist got to draw very different settings with different characters. So it was a nice, not that that was necessarily the plan to begin with, but it was a nice way to set up each artist to kind of like spread their wings. A big part of this whole book is really like this is definitely a book that's for like an art lover. Like
Mm.
the story is simple enough. Like I'm just writing like crazy shit for characters to do and like some jokes along the way. But like it's such an action like art forward book. Um I really wanted, to your point, to really get out of their way. So like Alexis, like where he starts off the series, like, and it was like very much like setting up these characters. He could draw them, their designs and everything in a way that was like still like very much 90s video game like
Right.
craziness, but as like the series goes on, the designs of the characters kind of grow with the situation that they're in. So like they're going into these constant battles. So they're like gearing up, like each like issue they're getting their new weapons and stuff, but also like their clothing. Like I was able to like show each artist like, look, this is where the character left off. Like
Mm.
they got new gear at the beginning of this issue, but they got this beat up by the end. Okay, you're picking up where that person left off. That's how beat up they are. continue to beat them up, So like, and there's a bunch of like costume changes, and it was really fun to be like give
Right.
each person a chance to like redesign a version of a costume,
Mhm.
as the series goes on. So yeah, like they got to choose basically design all the villains that they were going to face in their issues, with some exceptions because I designed like main characters.
Right.
Um, but they got to keep tinkering with them, and I love the way everyone did it.
So how tight then do you script? Knowing that like like you said, like you want this to be a more artist forward book, but obviously is still your story. What are there things that you have to do for this that you wouldn't have done for Head Lopper or vice versa?
I think it was a little bit like, maybe easier because it's such an action
Mhm.
driven book, and going into it being like, there's probably not going to be a sequel, or I'm not going to try to set it up. I'm going to leave like the option open, but I'm not going to
Sure.
set it up that it's so intricate that like you got to remember little things. So no, not really. I could kind of write the script how I normally would for the most part. And if they have like questions or something, and sometimes when you have an idea visually, it doesn't work out. So there was a number of times where they're just like, someone was like, oh, like there was a one of my favorite characters is this, like, he works at this warehouse. It's like he's like one of the bosses, if you
Mhm.
will, of like the level. And like they think they're gonna find Slither, but they find this like alligator person who's like the boss. And spoiler alert, he takes a drug to get like super shredder. He gets like swells up and is like extra big muscles and everything.
Right.
And I forgot what it was originally that like was the way in which he was going to administer this drug to himself. And I don't know if he had some gas mask or something that like when Al Gofa went to draw, he was just like, what the hell? What the hell is this thing? I was like, all that matters is that he gets this drug in his body and then grows really big. So you can design your own thing. Like, so I think he went with some kind of syringe thing, or there was another part where it's like, Bash, one of the obstacles that Bash has to overcome is that he's this super thief that was a team, right? And like when he's with Marley, it's just him. So how does he be both the ear and the fingers for like cracking locks? Like this is a threshold that like Bash has to cross. A personal thing is, how do I do my job all by myself? And so there was one of these super locks that he has to do, and I like was pretty much like to the artist. This was also Al. I was just like, symbolize this. Like,
Mhm.
imagine him like physically inside some like high technological door. Draw it like it's Tron or something if you want, but like there's no panels. Just how do we make it look like Bash is trying and failing at unlocking this door by himself? And it's awesome. It's one of my favorite pages because it's like it's symbolic. Like he's not. It's more like Bash running around inside a lock rather than like actually outside and like tinkering with his fingers and stuff. And I just think it's like a perfect kind of like it's visually interesting, but it's also a great symbol for like the depth of his like challenge that he's physically immersed in this whole thing. But it was one of those great places where I could go, Al, bring me an idea. Like you do this. Like here's like so you can write in little places in a script for someone that's just like, here's where you go crazy. Like
Mhm.
sometimes let's be like, all right, new costume. It's like think Jack Kirby or something, like Cosmic Kirby or whatever, and then they can just like run away with it.
W- Um, in a uh, given how like the setting for this is so um loud, maybe I think is like so much stuff kind of going on in a sense. How what do you do to make sure that it stays clear? right? Like that the storytelling kind of stays clear, like because like in this instance too, it sounds like you're writing it, you're letting the artist kind of do their thing, but also you have to serve as kind of the editor in that sense. And so how do you kind of keep that um letting everyone kind of push as far as they can to the electric fence without touching it?
Sure, yeah. It's I think there's two things that you could do. First of all, the story itself is very simple. Like once it's set up, it like the first like two chapters is very much like wind up the characters and then release them. And so like once they're like released story-wise, they've got their motivation, they can just run through anything. And so I think it being such a simple story, it's easier to keep the reader in that like it's pretty clear early on what the character's motivations are, and those things don't change. So craziness can happen and you still know exactly what the goal is. The other thing is you can hold your reader's hand a little bit. I used to be like very much against that. I would like crave some like subtlety in a comic, but one of the great things about a comic is that though the worlds can be so big and so crazy, and I remember one of my favorite books is Jodorowsky and Mobius's The Inkle. And The Inkle is very metaphysical, and they go through all kinds of worlds that like they shouldn't be going through and all kinds of shit. There's all kinds of stuff that doesn't make any sense, like, in terms of science, physics, whatever. How did you get here? Why are you here? And like one of the things I noticed when I had read it initially is how much Jodorowsky holds your hand in the dialogue. Like this can be a detriment to a comic if you don't need your hand held. But if you're taking your audience through crazy worlds and crazy concepts that might be a little bit hard to follow, I think it's okay to have your characters kind of verbalize their actions. So like that's just like a level setter kind of thing. I just remember hating that kind of thing. Why should a character say something if you can see it or whatever? But then like I remember some of the characters in The Inkle stepping through some portal or something and be like, now this is where we are. And I'm like, good thing you told me. I have no idea what's happening. But yeah, so that's the other thing is like, if you really, so my mantra often when I'm creating is I say clarity first. If I say to myself, like, should I do this or should I do that? And I'm like, and I'm really not sure. I'm like, which one's better? I go, well, forget about better. Like I try to look at things through the metric of clarity. Like I'm trying to tell a story. So if I lose my audience, I'm not really succeeding at telling a story. So I do try, especially like you said, in a world that's as loud and as colorful as in Death Fight Forever. I try to make sure that I'm leading the character through those tough moments. Or the reader, I should say.
Before I let you go, I'd throw a few more questions your way. That's more the where the Ask Abby advice column type stuff for some folks. You've talked about how getting into comics and staying in comics and kind of building it as a career was obviously took a lot of work. What do you think though is the hardest part about a career in this field that people don't maybe talk about enough?
I think it'll probably change for you depending on how long you've been doing it. Because I would say that the things that are a challenge now are not necessarily the things that were on my radar early on. So I'll say for now, the thing that I work on or the biggest challenge is work-life balance. Like it was easy early on when it was like easy is maybe not the right word, but like early on, it's like I will do anything to make this dream happen. Like I'll do like so you make those sacrifices willingly, right? Like you're like, you work much later than you can. You're taking red-eye flights so you can hit as many conventions as you can. Like my wife and I, she works with me a lot. Like one year we did like 25 conventions, and that's like,
Holy moly.
it's like every other weekend. Like
That's
that's a lot of conventions. It's exhausting, and so like after I mean I've been kind of doing it like full time for I don't know, maybe 12 years or something.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah. So the tough thing is like, there's a phrase you can't like pour from an empty cup. Well,
Mhm.
like you really will, like this job really will eat up like every moment of your life, and you will still not get everything done. So that's the real challenge is that like it'll chip away at your mental health. It'll definitely chip away at your physical health. Like I've been to the chiropractor many times to fix my neck, and so that's the biggest challenge. But like, that's not necessarily like super helpful if someone's like wants to do
Sure.
the job. That's like hey, this is what hurts now.
This is where
Uh,
maybe you end up, right?
I do say
Well,
I
yeah,
do.
because I mean, like, look, I mean, you presumably started somewhere in your mid to late 20s, right? And like that, I feel like most everyone in that age bracket is at a very different point in their life than,
Yeah.
where they are 10, 15 years later from that.
Yeah.
And so from there, at that point, you do have a lot of time. Like I say the same thing for me. So like for me, my first job was like I was an intern at Marvel, and I got into I did PR and marketing and sales and stuff there. And when I was there, one of the things one of my first projects that I got to work on was Hickman's Secret Warriors thing.
Mhm.
And a thing that we did with that was, we built an ARG site basically that like we put passwords in on each of the issues. And then there was like bonus content on this website
Oh,
where it was like
cool. Yeah.
character sketches. You could see the scripts, parts of Hickman's Bible, all, stuff like that.
Mm.
But like that came like, but like that was at a time where, everyone was learning HTML and CSS in the same way by experimenting on their MySpace pages, and I remember, like it's in my early 20s, staying up late with too many cans of Red Bull and pizza, just like finishing this thing because I
Just
wanted to see it through and
yeah.
done, right? And like wasn't my own thing, but like but it was in a sense, right? Like no one had this idea before. I wanted
Ownership.
to
Yeah.
prove I wanted to prove it. And I was like, yeah, but like now, if I think about doing that now, I'm like, oh God.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, yeah, and so like to a large degree, I'm just like, what am I? I'll be 42 soon, or some 40. Like so I'm like, how much of this is me just feeling my age now? But maybe more like practical, like say advice or so. I do think that like getting started, like obviously social media, you can't like really measure and see how like well it.
Well, that was one of the things that we didn't really touch on too, but you were really, I don't want to say like compulsively online, but you were like, you had jumped on I'm going to use the internet as a billboard. I feel like kind of from the very beginning, and I think use that to a degree of success.
That's an interesting take. I didn't realize that I necessarily would be out of.
I did, yeah. I mean, I know. I said that. I go, God, it sounds like this dude did nothing but do that. But I remember.
I don't take
like,
offense. I just had.
but like that's, I mean, like that's how I think initially some of your stuff got onto my radar, was like, and I thought like, your DeviantArt pages, and you kept putting a bunch of your stuff, whether it was sketches or whatever,
Yeah.
online for people to follow and see. And I feel like you have been able to build an audience over the course of your career that like knows what they get when they get an Andrew MacLean book, but also too are doing stuff in a way that is continuously kind of inviting people into the tent.
I try. Yeah, I definitely try. I don't want to like, even like often a book I create now, I'm like, all right, like I'm like, how do I reward a returning reader while also not like edging out a new reader. Like I don't want like for example, so new Head Lopper is going to be a new number one. So my goal is, how do I welcome in new readers without necessarily like either losing or patronizing old readers? Like, how do I incorporate like, yeah, it's a balance. And that's how like my Agatha comic was too. I was like, all right, if you've never read any Head Lopper, I want to make sure that you can read this Agatha comic comfortably and enjoy it. But if you've read all of Head Lopper, I wanted to like supplement it a little bit. Yeah, I would say in terms of social media, like when social media was really coming around and becoming really just available, like I used MySpace for music when I was making music or whatever, and so much of being in a band was to do everything yourself. So all of that kind of like self-publishing, self-promoting and stuff felt fairly natural. There was like but I didn't enjoy social media. Like I didn't really do personal social media. I was like, I don't care.
You didn't participate in the discourse, but like,
yeah, like maybe a little bit, but like, I don't know. It was very like self-conscious and stuff, but I had to tell myself, well, look, like you're starting a business. So like, I had to tell myself two things. Like, this isn't like just trying to like show off, get a pat on the back. This is trying to turn this into a career. Like, so you gotta think of it that way, treat it that way. And the other thing I told myself is like, look, you know, at least a certain part of it's a small industry, but at least a certain part of it is to be like a public person or something, is to create a fan base of some sort, you hope. And so I was like, look, if I want anyone to know my name and buy something based on my name, I have to tell them. Like that was like my little like line to myself. Like no one's gonna know your name if you don't tell them. Like it may be uncomfortable to be like, hey, look at me. But like that is it. Like, cause I would just be like, no one else is gonna do it for you. Like, no one else. Like you gotta help yourself. You just like, it can be uncomfortable, but you gotta do it. But so yeah, I hit it hard, and I even at the time there was some like I was like, any of them doesn't matter if I don't like the platform or not, like or I hate it. Like if there's people there with eyeballs, like I should put something there for them to see it. And not so much now because I don't know, it just wears you out. But that was definitely my attitude at the time. And there was like some sketch blogs where there were like artists doing these things where they'd be like a group of, friends, and they'd be like, oh, let's all draw from a theme.
Man, I cannot tell you how much I miss those.
They're great. They were so fun.
So much.
Yeah. And I would see other like groups or whatever, and I'd just be so jealous because it'd be like so fun looking, and I'd be like, I want to draw a part of that group. And so I was just like, screw it, I'll just make one. So I just started one, and my thought was like, there's all these people on DeviantArt who I thought were just incredible artists, and no one seemed to know who they were. They weren't working in comics. And in hindsight, they were just still young. They were just like students or whatever. But so I put together this group, and it was like me and Treadmore and James Herron and like just like all bangers. Like in hindsight, like 99% of them are like very successflike like comic people. So when I was like, I can't believe people don't know who they are, they just didn't know yet. Like
right.
Like just needed a little more time. So anyway, so like I think that was helpful too. Is like, so while I was like hitting social media really hard, I was also doing sketch blogs were a thing, and my thought was like, look, felt like we were all in need of some like, next steps, a leg up, whatever. Like we were trying to get over that threshold and become, professionals. And so I was like, well, A, it looks really fun, and B, like theoretically we'll all share each other's fans. Like if James Herron brings some James Herron fans over, maybe they'll find Treadmore and vice versa. And so we did that for a couple of years. It was really great.
Well, I think that's one of the other like aspects of the business that I've spoken to some folks about here on the show is building and finding your community in a sense, or like, or think the phrase I've used is like class, basically, right?
Yeah. I call it
Where
that sometimes too. It's like, it feels like graduating class of like,
yeah.
it may not be annual, but it does feel that way.
Right. Or like again, like just like even like you said, right? Like I think it was like God, whoa, what was it? I think it was it brand new nostalgia? Is that what
Yeah, that was
the
our
Tumblr
blog.
was? Yeah, right. Yeah, like okay, right. So like I always like, associate like, your group of artists in that way. And then there was, the stuff that like Mitch Gerrard's had with like with
Yeah.
Somni and Shelby and whatever. And like to me, like those were like, like not rival schools, but like kind of classes in a way
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
have kind of
And
come
maybe
up.
it started with, like, the drink and draw stuff was
Yep.
kicking off, like, there was, like, that's kind of where some of that, like, group drawing started to come to life, I think, and,
Yeah.
it was just fun, and I just wanted to, like, plays, and I wasn't, like, busy enough for it to be a burden, you know? And, and that's really why it kind of, like, I wouldn't say it fell apart, but that's why it, like, petered out, is that
Because everyone started to get
people
real
got work.
jobs.
Yeah, so, like, that was great, like, yeah, that was, like, the goal, right? Is I was hoping that people would, find work,
Right.
because I was a fan. I mean, look at, like, I mentioned, like, Heron and Trad Moore because
Yep.
this day they're still, like, some of my favorite artists, like, that's why they come to mind first, is that, like, I've been such a fan of theirs since DeviantArt when they
Mhm.
hadn't done anything yet.
Nice. Uh, Last question, then I'll let you go. What still excites you about making comics?
My favorite thing about making comics is the simplest part of it, is just the sitting down at the drawing table. Like, through comics, basically, I've been lucky enough to work in, dabble in a handful of industries. Like, I got to develop a TV show. I've got to do illustration and character designs for cartoons and for video games and things like that. And though largely largely comics based, the worst, is my favorite. Like, I just like I'm at my most peaceful
Uh-huh.
just sitting at the table and drawing. Like, that process of, like, creative, like, problem solving is
Mhm.
very relaxing to me. I feel like I'm in control, like, it's great, like, it's like I like to cook, and I think it's, like,
Mm.
that same place, that, like, kind of, like, just getting engrossed in the creation of something.
Mhm.
Because like, a lot of the other, like, jobs come with all kinds Zoom meetings and all kinds of other, like, just, like, documents for the sake of documents.
Sure.
Contracts and things. I don't know. But no, I love the simplest part of it.
Mhm.
Like that, like sitting at the table and drawing it, and specifically drawing comic pages.
Mhm.
Like, if I'm on like a run of covers or something, I'm so grateful for those things because it lets you draw big, you get to spread out a little bit, and and you get to draw characters you might not normally draw because they're not in your book. But if I go through, say, a stretch of, like, just cover work for, like,
Mhm.
say, a couple weeks or something, like, I feel unproductive. Like,
Mm.
there's something about, like, drawing one image and then setting aside that feels like it just disappeared, but the process of making a comic, like, you get satisfied panel by panel. I finished this panel, then you're like, "I finished a page. Look, I finished a page. This feels so good." But tomorrow, you do a new page, and now you've made a two-page. So, like, the idea that you're
Mhm.
building a larger, like, project, that you're telling a story and piece by piece, you're building it like the bricks of a house, I find extremely satisfying. So,
Mhm.
I don't know. Like, it's hard to kind of imagine doing anything other than drawing comics if it's that level of
Mhm.
satisfying.
All right, I lied. I had one more quick question for you, only because it came up while I thought about it while you were talking about this. once you realized that you were going to have to open the doors for other artists on Death Fight Forever, did you have to fight the urge not to do one yourself?
Yes, very much so. Yes. I knew exactly which one I was going to draw too. There was actually a whole nother chapter in there that I wanted to draw that I took out. I think it would have been fun. But honestly, when I looked at it, I was like, this isn't moving the plot.
Mhm.
It just it's just like some more characters that I wanted to put in that world, really.
Uh-huh.
And it was just kind of like, it was really just like almost like the training montage of before the big thing, or like, it was like the gearing up. Like, it was like where they were going to go. Bash and Marlowe were going to go to this, like, it was like a vampire market. They were going to like buy their weapons and stuff, and they were going to like pay in blood. Like, that was like the whole thing is like, and that was like the last joke at the end of the issue or whatever is like, Marlowe was going to be like, wait, really? We pay in blood? This is so weird. And Bash was like, yeah, but we got a cookie at the end or some orange. I don't know. Something about some giving blood joke. But anyways, yeah. So I wanted to draw this whole vampire market and have these like vampire like weapons dealers stuff. So yeah, I wanted to draw it so bad. And I was already working on Head Lopper,
Okay.
and I was just like, and so the idea of, putting more work on my plate that was for drawing, I was just like, like I could do an issue, but
Right.
it'll push Head Lopper out 3 months or something. So
at the beginning of this, we talked about how like having to edit meant maybe cutting out a page or a scene here, but in this case, you just cut a whole issue.
I cut a whole issue. Yeah, it was going to be 6 issues. And then I was just like, and that was like a big moment. I was like, all right. I wrote the whole thing, and I was like, I like this issue. I think it's fun. And there was all these jokes about like, because I love the 90s video game silliness, and like
Right.
Marlowe was gonna like gear up with all kinds of giant guns and like Uzis and like belts of bullets and all this stuff, but Bash just picked out like spiked bats and nunchucks and like a glove like dipped in like glass, like just like stupid, like kind of useless street brawler things compared to the guns that Marlowe was gonna pick out.
How many hockey sticks and or trash cans get thrown
Exactly,
in
yeah.
the book?
Any barrel that gets shot explodes. Doesn't matter what's in it or if there should be a barrel there. Yeah, like that. There's a lot of wooden crates to smash. I don't know.
Right, just like pizza sitting on the floor somewhere for a health boost.
Yeah, just all that stuff.
So great. Andrew, man, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Death
fun.
Fight Forever comes out February 18th is the first issue. So depending on when you're listening to this, the book may be out. And if it is, great, go pick it up. If it hasn't come out yet, what are you doing? Go tell your retailer you need 2 copies, and one for yourself and one to give, to your fellow fighting brother.
That's right. Whoever's got that other
read it together.
And then I don't know if the solicit's out yet, but yeah, Head
Lopper's back. Yeah, I think it will be like shortly after this comes out, so I think it's fine to be like, Head Lopper's back.
Yeah, it's back in a very big way. Yeah, it's back with a new issue 1, so it's like a good jumping on point, but it's also very much like fits right in where we left off as well. I'm really trying to take care of everybody with that. And yeah, that's on April 22nd. It's like 80 pages too. Like,
nice.
I just kept dumping more stuff into it.
You just can't help yourself.
Yeah. So like, it's like same price as always, but it's like a really big issue.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, dude, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. That was really fun.
All right, there we go. Another episode of Let's Talk Comics, signed, sealed, and delivered. Thank you, Andrew MacLean, for taking the time to chat with us today, especially about process. I know you guys dig that stuff so much. So do I. Conversations like this remind me, and I hope they remind you, of why people fall in love with making comics in the first place. And if you haven't yet, go pre-order Death Fight Forever. Go buy a copy, go buy 2 copies, if you haven't checked out Head Lopper, I don't know what you're doing. Go do that. Go do that right now and sit down and enjoy one heck of a ride. Thanks again for listening to another episode of the show, and thank you all for your support. I've been loving all the comments over on Spotify. It means a lot to me. Would love to see you guys share the show on social media, so if you can, take a screenshot, share that. And then, again, right, if you have got the opportunity to leave a review on Apple, would love that as well. Your support means the world to me. I've gotten a lot of great feedback from some of the recent episodes, and I hope to just keep getting better and better at this. Not that I don't think I'm terrible, but also at the same time, I want to make sure you guys keep sticking around. I think this is going to be a fun year. I'm excited for it, as you've heard me say ad nauseum, but I mean it. And so until next time, folks, keep reading comics, because if you do that, we get to keep talking about them. Catch you later.